And the Giants have made a change at quarterback. Rookie Daniel Jones will be the starter at Tampa Bay. Eli Manning will be his backup. In 2 games this season, Manning has a 78.7 passer rating, his lowest through the first 2 games since 2014, when his passer rating was 69.2. He finished 15th in passer rating that year as the team went 6-10. Manning's passer rating is 18.9 points lower at home since 2017. Of course, the Giants are off to an 0-2 start. Head coach Pat Shurmur saying that he spoke with Manning earlier this morning to break the news. Of course, we continue our breaking news coverage here on NFL Network with the best in the business, NFL Network's Tom Pelissero, and our Super Bowl winning general manager, Charlie Casserly. And Tom, I'll start with you. Why did they decide to make the decision today?
The same reason that teams every year decide to go to a young quarterback, which is they're looking for a spark with the Giants. They're off to an 0-2 start. Of course, they have issues in terms of their receiving group with Golden Tate suspended, Sterling Shepard in the concussion protocol. Defensively, they've had pass rush issues. But the quarterback position is the one spot where you can make a sea change. And they saw enough from Daniel Jones in the preseason that you got the sense it was when, not if, this change was going to be made. Certainly, their failures so far this season do not fall exclusively at the feet of Eli Manning, but in Daniel Jones, they get a player who is a good athlete. He's more mobile than Eli Manning is going to be in terms of his traits. There are a lot of similarities in terms of what we've seen Eli Manning be able to do in the past, and he impressed. He showed in the preseason that the game was not too big for him. I got unsolicited texts after his first preseason game from offensive and defensive coaches from other teams who had watched the tape and said, this guy's got a chance to be really good in the NFL, and we will find out now as the Giants build a game plan around Daniel Jones for the first time and give him his first NFL start on Sunday against the Bucs.
Charlie, we know he's very revered in this organization, won 2 Super Bowls, has done a lot for the organization, not only on the field, but off as well. How collaborative was this decision between management and ownership and Coach Pat Shurmur?
Yeah, I really don't know that, to be honest with you here, but I'm sure it was one discussed by everybody. My feeling is they decided, why prolong this? It's going to happen. The die was cast when they took him in the top 10. He showed that he could play well in preseason. That's what we got out of that. Had the best vision anticipation of any quarterback in the draft, and he showed that when he played in preseason for the Giants. He handled the media well, so it didn't seem to be too big for him. Again, this was going to happen at some point, so why prolong it? Let's go with it now. It wasn't as if Eli was playing that bad. He wasn't playing that good, and they were close in the game in the fourth quarter, but it's time to move on. Let's move on. There's no easy way to do it. But this thing was started a couple of years ago, so this really isn't a surprise. It's just pick the date, that's all.
And the question now, Charlie, becomes what happens next with Eli Manning? Well, the Giants paid him a $5 million roster bonus back in March. Once he was on the Week 1 roster, his $11.5 million base salary, for all intents and purposes, becomes guaranteed too. And Eli has a no-trade clause. We saw the quotes from Pat Shurmur that were distributed by the team saying that Eli was disappointed in this decision, but he vowed to continue to be a good teammate, help them prepare to win games. If the Giants have any opportunities to move on to Eli Manning, to trade him elsewhere, Manning is the one who holds the hammer in that situation. He can say, based on that no-trade clause, that he wouldn't want to go to any other spot. Let's also not forget the history of Eli Manning over 16 years with the New York Giants, 2 Super Bowl wins. He's put down roots in that area. He's married, has 4 kids. Does he really want, at this stage at 38 years old, to go someplace else? Certainly, you would think as a competitor, the thought would cross his mind. As of now, though, we've not yet heard from Eli Manning since this decision to find out exactly where his head is at.
Charlie, how different do you think this offense is now going to look with Daniel Jones at the helm?
The 2 things he can give you ahead of where Eli is right now is he's going to be better on his deep ball accuracy. Eli is not accurate throwing the deep ball. He had a couple Sunday. I mean, he just heaved him up there. They weren't close. So Jones should be better in that area. He showed it in preseason. And as Tom pointed out, he's got better mobility. So improvising, prolonging plays with pass protection breakdowns. Their pass protection is better, but there was still sometimes Buffalo won rushing the passer on Sunday. So those are the two things he gives you. Now, obviously, Eli is ahead of him in recognizing defenses, adjusting during the game to the NFL. And obviously, this will be a challenge because you're going to see a lot of blitzes come Sunday with Todd Bowles and that defense. Even if he wasn't a rookie, you'd see those blitzes. So I think that there's the plus athletically in the deep ball, and then the experience factor, which, again, he's not going to get this kind of experience sitting on the bench. So let's move forward with the future right now.
Tom, and looking at some of the quotes from Pat Shurmur after Sunday night's loss to the Bills, Shurmur praising Josh Allen and that touchdown run that he had, saying they had the G sweep, it was well done, well executed. It's almost as if we got a clue, or he was telegraphing what he was expecting from an offense with a mobile quarterback.
It adds a dimension. There's no question about that. And it's not strictly the mobility or the athletic ability with Daniel Jones. He was a polarizing prospect, as Charlie knows, before the draft. There were some people who really believed in Daniel Jones, and there were other people who did not think that it was going to work out for him well in the NFL. But the people who believed in Daniel Jones did point to the athletic ability, but even more so than that, the ability to process, to see things on the field. He's been really well trained by David Cutcliffe, same guy who trained Eli Manning back when Jones was at Duke. He understands offense, and he's tough. He had collarbone surgery on his non-throwing side, was back in less than 3 weeks, started a game again. He has never had NFL caliber players around him. There were quarterback coaches who told me when they watched Jones on tape, there were some peculiar things about his mechanics, such as the depth of his shotgun drops. He didn't drop as deep in the pocket because he knew the athletes they were facing on the outside, his tackles couldn't block him. So now as he moves into the NFL, the Giants have upgraded their offensive line. This is going to be a completely different challenge than what Daniel Jones saw in college, but there are traits that the people who believe in believe in Daniel Jones and did during the pre-draft process believe are going to help him even in what is absolutely a challenging situation starting this week at Tampa.
Now, Charlie, Tom had touched upon in terms of Eli Manning. He has roots there in the New York area. He's meant a lot to that area as well. But if you are David Gettleman right now and is 3 games into the season, what potential possibility would you look at moving Eli Manning and seeing if he would want to be moved to a team that is starving for great quarterback play behind center?
Well, he obviously controls it with the no-trade clause. I mean, you sit down with the guy man-to-man and say, you know, here's where we are. Okay, this is our plan for the rest of the season. Obviously, it could change. I mean, he could be back in there playing with an injury. He could be back in there playing if Jones is struggling. You want to give Jones a break, as the Jets did with Sam Darnold, to watch from the bench and get your head together and then come back in. So I think you just have a man-to-man talk with him and say, you know, here's our plan. And I would assume they would have had this talk anyway with him when the draft occurred as to what the plan is for the season. I would think you would have done that then. So do you want to be traded? Do you want to be here? If you want to be traded, who do you want to be traded to? You know, now, it's fantasy football now. Does somebody want Eli Manning? Okay, at this point in time. Now, obviously, he's going to be better than some of the quarterbacks that might be playing out there that teams are playing with. But I'm not sure this guy's a surefire cinch to take it to the playoffs. But I don't think the Giants would ask anything in a trade, really, if Eli wanted to go. I wouldn't. Eli, if you want to go, you know, hey, we love you. Tell us what you want to do.
If you'd think anybody might place that phone call to be a guy down in Jacksonville, Tom Coughlin won 2 Super Bowls with Eli Manning as his quarterback. They lost Nick Foles. He's out for a chunk of the season. But again, a large base salary that you'd be paying Eli Manning. It's a change going from a Gardner Minshew or even a Nick Foles who can move around a little bit more. You're talking about changing your offense midstream at this point. There'd be a lot of different hurdles, including, again, the no-trade clause that would impact whether or not the Giants would even have the opportunity to move Eli Manning to some other team.
Tom Pelissero and Charlie Casserly, thank you as we continue our breaking news coverage here on NFL Network. The Giants making a change under center.